We're acting as the third-party administrator for LA County's Justice, Care, and Opportunities Department and the JCOD CFCI CARE grants. The CFCI, or Care First Community Investment Grants, are the result of ballot measure J, voted in by LA County residents in 2020. Care First Community Investment Funds are intended to be invested directly into communities and alternatives to incarceration that address negative outcomes caused by racially driven criminal legal system inequities and long-term economic investment. Today's webinar is being recorded. You do not have to be on camera. Please understand that if you are on camera, your image may be captured in the recording. Staying on the webinar represents your consent to being recorded. And finally, please note the following legal disclaimer. It's on the bottom right of your screen. The material presented does not constitute legal advice and is only intended to provide information. Organizations and individuals should independently verify that any information presented is appropriate or applicable to their situation before acting on it. I would like to add that we were going to be watching a couple of free resources that I found on the internet. It's not an endorsement of the people providing these resources or any services that they might provide. It was just a good nugget sized. I thought this was a good opportunity for all of us to sit together and spend, I think one of the little videos might be 13, 14 minutes long, and the other one's about 8 minutes long. We'll just sit together and watch the information provided. But again, not an endorsement of anything that they might be selling or any of their products, just helpful information for people looking for grants. Next slide, please. At Amity, we incorporate teachings that center the community before we begin our work. Today, we will use the LA County Land Acknowledgement to recognize the price paid by individuals that has resulted in efforts such as Care First Community Investment. We recognize that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tongva, Tataviam, Serrano, Quiche, and Chumash peoples. We honor and pay respect to their elders and descendants. We acknowledge that settler colonization resulted in the genocide of the First Peoples. This acknowledgement demonstrates our responsibility and commitment to truth, healing, and reconciliation, and to elevating the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of Los Angeles County. Next slide, please. Well, today you have signed on to find out how to find grants for your organization, also known as prospect research. My name is Rebecca Gray. I'm the grant administrator for Amity's third-party administrator. Many of you might have gotten to know me when we were doing the application process for the JCOD CFCI funds. In my previous life, 3 years ago, I was a grant seeker and a grant writer. And I did that work for 19 years. I started with a small theater company in LA. I came to LA to be an actor and joined a theater company, and I learned how to write grants for this theater company. And then it became my life's work. I pretty quickly went over into health and human services. I have to tell you that when the call came down, many of you asked for this information, right? Many people were interested in knowing, how do I even begin? So I have this one grant. I need to start building a portfolio of grants. Where do I start? A lot of it had already sort of slipped away from me. So we've put together a webinar full of resources for you to come back to over and over and over again. All the links to these resources, all of the websites have been checked. They're still good. You can go back. This webinar is going to be made available to all of you. So I'm hoping this is something that you can use over and over again. Let's take a look at our first slide. And again, this will be made available to you. You will have the slideshow, the recorded webinar, and some materials that we're going to go over. So when I was reintroducing myself to how do I start to find grants, I found several of these checklists about being grant ready. Just about everybody here has received a grant. They have received the JCOD CFCI CARE grant funds. And you have probably in the process learned a lot about what it takes to be grant ready. And you have done a lot to make yourselves grant ready. If you have successfully onboarded this JCOD LA County CFCI grant, you are well positioned to be successful in going after other grants. One of the checklists I found, I copied and pasted here. Grant readiness has many definitions. One approach outlines the following 3 stages. I found it on our resources page at the Amity TPA website. You can find a webinar that I delivered about a year ago about how to write winning grants. And this number 1 part, this is the part that I really emphasized during that webinar, because in my 19 years of being a grant writer, I came to a conclusion. And the conclusion is that grant writing is project management. It is project. I wish it were about the beauty and eloquence of your writing. I wish it were about the power and strength of your programs. But I got to tell you, what grant writing is about is chasing down your boss and getting them to sign a document that you have to turn in with your grant package in order to even be eligible, to even be in the running for the funds. So when I look at number 1 here, like, I really want people to take note of this. You need to, and we have a checklist we're going to make available to you of every single attachment I have ever seen asked for personally. And it is, you know what, I'm going to show it to you right now. Mina, in a second, I'm gonna share my screen. I'll find grants. I just want you to see this. I just want you to see this checklist. So I call it, here we go. All right. Okay, this is tiny. Let me make it a little bigger. So I called this sort of as an inside joke to myself. I called it an incomplete list of required attachments, partly because it reminded me of an unfortunate series of events. That whole, like, I was like, this caused me more pain than just about anything else in my career as a grant writer, was trying to get all of these PDFs, attachments, and documents together. So
Rebecca,
yes.
do you need to share your screen?
Oh, it says I am screen sharing. Am I not screen sharing?
No, I think I still am.
You are, they just have to move to that one.
Go ahead.
All right.
There you are.
Oh, good. Okay, good. All right. So sorry. So again, this is an incomplete list of required attachments. And again, you don't have to have everything on this list, but I'm telling you, if you do, you are never going to be in the position ever again of it being 3 hours before a grant is due and you realize that you need an avoided check, or you realize that you need. So these are all the things that I ever saw in my career as a grant writer that were asked for in a grant application. And as you can see, it is insane. It is insane. And a lot of these are nice to haves. There's some very basic ones that are required, like this, like your IRS 501c3 letter. The federal one, that is going to be required for just about everyone. Your statement of good standing, or the fact that you are in good standing with your state, that is always required. So again, we're going to provide this to you, but I'll stop my share here. And Ms. Mina, if you can get us back to. So again, this is not cut and dry. This is everything you have to do. This is a resources webinar for your use as you begin to build out your list of prospects, of places where you're going to go to ask money. These are some ideas to help you get started. So again, I loved this. Make sure you're grant ready checklist. I also just wanted to pay attention to number 3. Actually, Mina, advance to the next slide because I think this one is better. Okay, so here on a checklist that I found kind of randomly on the internet of how to find grants, the number one thing that this person suggested was review your mission. I cannot. So I think almost everyone here right now is a JCOD CFCI grantee, which means that you understood all the eligibility requirements. And when your application was reviewed, you met all of the eligibility requirements. But I cannot tell you, for this last round for year 3, we had over $1 billion in requests. And so many of these organizations got super excited because they saw that someone was giving away money for the arts. They saw that, and that is all they saw. They did not research what this money is intended to do, where it came from. So this number 1 part, reviewing your mission, a sad fact about grants is, or maybe a happy, like depending on your perspective, let's say it's a happy fact about grants. Grants are relationship based. It's going to be a very rare occurrence when you just shoot a grant proposal out into the world and the funder looks at it and likes it and gives you money. That is rather unusual. Most grants you are invited to apply for. Most grants, you know the funder. Most grants, all grants, you will not get funded unless the work you are doing matches the funder's desires about what they want to fund. There has to be a match. So this number 1, review your mission, understand your mission. It doesn't matter how well you describe your services for youth if you're applying to a funder who only wants to fund seniors. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good your work is, how good your outcomes are. If the funder you are applying to is not interested in funding youth programs, you will never get that grant. And you would be best served not sending that, like, do not spend time on grants that you are either not eligible for or do not align with the funder's values, with the things that the funder wants to fund. So I saw this in several lists, this kind of review your mission and review the funder's mission. Like, you want to make sure there's a match, right? Don't waste your time applying for money that you're never going to get. And that's something like I've wanted to tell JCOD CFCI grant applicants who do not serve justice impacted communities, right? Who do not serve target populations, that they're wasting their time. They are not, even if they pass every other eligibility standard, they are not serving the heart and soul of what this money is intended to do. And so their grant application, no matter how fantastic it is or how great their program is, they will not get funded unless there's a match. All right. So a couple of other interesting ideas. You can Google search your way to a grant application. You can use Google. You need to think about what your keywords were. I thought this was just really good advice. You know, think about like when you do a Google search, you get on Google and you can search grant, youth, after school programs, sports, or all the other things that might narrow down a list of people who want to fund what you want to do. So it's a pretty good exercise to think about what your keywords are. I get the third thing here about location. Grants are geographically based. There are very few national grants that you're going to be eligible for that you're going to get. It's very unlikely. You want to look for grants that are in your city, town, county. These funding organizations are looking for you. They want to enrich their communities. So location, location, location. Next slide, please. Another suggestion, another list of suggestions, right? We're going to get into some of these things in later slides. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you go back one, Mina? Sorry, that's tricky. Okay, thanks. I did want to point this out. So a lot of you who have questions about where do I begin, where do I look? If you've got a board of directors, a mentor, connections in the community, ask them. Ask them if they know somebody who works at a funder. Ask them who has funded them. If you have a relationship with they'd feel free to share that information. A lot of the funds that you are eligible for are in your own backyard. And you can find organizations that do similar work to the work that you are doing and see who's funding them. And that can be your beginning list, your start out list of where you're going to ask for funds. All right, sorry. Now me to next slide. All right, so again, this slide deck is going to be available to you. This webinar is going to be available to you. A lot of these resources are going to be available to you for you to look through and click through and look at all of these resources again. So please don't panic. If this slide is going by and you didn't get to take a picture of it or write it down, or you're going to have all of these resources and be able to use them at your leisure. So I did one of the things that one of the links that I have made primary here, the first link that I've made available in this slide deck is Candid. Some of you may be aware of the foundation directory. For 40 years, the foundation directory was the place where you had to go to find funders. And we will see later on, you can still subscribe to the foundation directory. It's become Candid. An organization called GuideStar that lists nonprofit organizations, and the foundation directory merged in, I think, 2019. We'll learn more about that later, but they merged to become Candid. So Candid has a ton of resources available to you. And I did find this Introduction to Finding Grants course, which is also very helpful, which is free. You can choose between a live session, a self-paced webinar, and a 1-hour video. So, you know, if you want to add to what you're learning here today, I highly recommend this resource. We are about to listen to Amber Melanie Smith. We're just going to all sit and listen to what she has to say. And my favorite resource that I've stumbled upon in doing these webinars is Tiffany Allen of Boss on a Budget. She was really active. She was posting these things in 2021. So it's a while ago now. I haven't seen anything posted lately, but she's still very active, very much in the space. And I co-sign everything she has to say. Like I love her as a resource and highly recommend her. So I think she's the first person we're going to watch. All right, Ms. Mina.
Hey everybody, so welcome to the video. Today we're going to talk about how to find grants when you're starting from ground zero. So let's get into it. Hey y'all, come on in. Let's sit down and chat about how to find grants for your nonprofit. So if you've watched any of my videos, you may know that I manage an online community of aspiring grant writers. So we're on Facebook. It's a free support group for grant writers, and it's resources and tips and funding opportunities, all kinds of stuff that you can find in that group. The link is below in the description box if you're interested. But I get a lot of the same questions over and over and over again. And I tell you, in the top 3 questions that I get, it's always one of those: where do I find grants? Where do I look for grants? Where should I go? I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. So I figured I would do a video on that just to make it easy for people to have in one place a strategy to find a bunch of different grants at once to get you started on your grant writing journey. So I actually created a worksheet based on what I was seeing in the group. So I'm going to link that worksheet below, but I created it based on the feedback from the people in the group. I tested it, and the people who used it, who tested it, average of 20 to 25 grants. They used it for a couple of hours and they got all of those potential grants within that time. So I think that would be a really useful tool for you if you have no idea where to start, if you're a new nonprofit or you're new to grant writing. So don't forget to check it out in the description box below. So I know you're like, Tiffany, come on, let's get to it. What is it? Let's break down these strategies, girl. All right. So one of the very first things that I recommend for people is to look into their community foundations. So some people probably watching this have no idea what a community foundation is. In very simplistic terms, they are foundations that are local to the area where they reside and they manage local pots of money. It's a very simplistic explanation of what they are, but they typically let out 2 to 3 grants a year that specifically target nonprofits in their immediate area. The other good thing about community foundations is that they manage money for other people. So if you're rich and you have this money that you want to provide, say like scholarships, and you don't want to be the one managing all of that, or you don't want to manage your stock portfolio and all of that, that's the service that the community foundation provides. So if a donor wants to support a nonprofit, but they have no idea where to look, and they go to their community foundation, that foundation can make the right connections if they're aware of your program and if they're aware of your services. So it's really good just to make yourself known to the community foundation. And the other great thing about them is that they also provide like training and support and development opportunities for local nonprofits. So definitely check them out. At the end of this video, I want you to hold out because I have 2 specific resources specifically for startup nonprofits. So they're small pots of money, but a lot of people have had success when they apply for these grants. So I'm going to go over what those 2 are at the end of the video, but you got to stay tuned. You got to stay with me as I go through all the different types of places that you need to look for grants. So the next place you need to look, you need to think about, and this seems like really intuitive, but most people just don't think to do this. But what you need to do is just sit down and write out all the places where you shop personally and professionally. Where do you spend your money? What are all the businesses that you frequent on a regular basis, or not even regular? Where do you give your money to? So I'm talking about the Walmarts of the world, the Targets, the Staples, the grocery stores, the hardware stores. Where do you spend your money? 9 times out of 10, they have some kind of foundation or fund where they provide grants to nonprofits. So they may not necessarily apply to the type of services that you have, but it's always good to check. And I guarantee you, if you sit down and think about this, you can bare minimum come up with a list of at least 10 businesses. So my worksheet helps you kind of think through this and helps you write this out. So again, check it out in the description box below. But always start within your local area. Where do you shop? Because that's a really good place to find grants. The other place you should think about, or other thing you need to think about, are your local government officials. So I live in a county where, in the state that I live in. So some of you guys probably have like maybe a province or maybe like a town or whatever, but you have local government officials. We have county council members. So in my area, each council member gets like $50,000 or a similar amount to use every year to give to a local nonprofit. So in my area, a lot of times the council members will give that money to the community foundation. So it's important to know who your officials are, what local money they have access to, because they may be able to connect you with grant opportunities as well. The other piece you should think about is your local and your state government agencies. So not just the elected officials, but the government agencies like the Department of Education or Department of Early Education. Maybe there's a Department of Youth Services, Department of Child Protective Services, Adult Services. I could go on and on. But go on your local government site, look at all the different agencies, and try to figure out what agencies would normally serve the same people that you serve. 9 times out of 10, they have some kind of contract or grant opportunity that you can tap into to provide ongoing services. And a lot of times, it's federal money actually that has been funneled through the state. And so the state is adhering to a federal program to administer the contract monies or whatever. So it's important to do your research to figure out what local money exists in the county or your immediate area already to figure out what you can tap into. What's really important about this is that you have to develop relationships. So a lot of times it's not going to be clear or apparent from face value on a website what the local grant or contract opportunities are, especially for local government. So you need to figure out who are the people, who are the major players within the government that manage this money or manage these programs, begin to meet them, go to all the different sessions that they have for grant opportunities, and start talking about the type of work you do and what kind of relationships and partnerships you can build. When you're doing grant writing in the beginning, well, this is just in general, but especially for small nonprofits that are getting up and running, it's really about making one-on-one connections, meeting people, explaining what your program is because you're new. Nobody knows what you provide. It's about establishing yourself, making yourself distinctive and unique so that they remember who you are and want to create opportunities for you as well. So just remember, it's about making real connections in the beginning. And really, it's going to carry you all the way through the phases of your nonprofit, but especially in the beginning, think about relationships you can make to help you identify more opportunities. The other thing I want to mention is people don't think about this, right? These are two places where most times in most areas they give money and they give a lot of money. Think about your banks and think about your utility companies. So banks obviously have money and utility companies have money too, right? Because we have to use them. Like everybody has to pay utility companies and banks just have money. So think about all the local banks and utility companies in your area. Again, write them down and figure out if they have foundations or funds where they give money to their local community. Another thing you should think about is if your local area has like an industry that it's famous for. So, like, example, Charlotte. Charlotte is big in the banking industry. So, I think Bank of America is headquartered there. If they aren't now, they at one point they were. So, I would be looking up Bank of America Foundation, if I lived in Charlotte, because if there's a business that has headquarters there, or there's a really large presence in the area and a lot of their employees live in that area, then they're probably invested in some kind of community giving. So pay attention to that and look at those businesses that are headquartered in your area or have a large presence because they probably give. The other piece you may want to think about is there a local club or association that likes to give money? So maybe there's like a Rotary Club, Kiwanis Club, Lions Club. There are all these random names that I didn't even know about starting out. They may actually give money to local nonprofits, or they may want you to come into a meeting, and once you present on your programs, they'll give to you. So it's important, again, to figure out who's within your network and your community and just start making connections. So, as promised, I talked about two opportunities in
Okay,
particular
Nina,
that
we
are available
can
for
stop it here.
startup.
All right. So again, that video is available at YouTube. You can search it and find her resources. She is very responsive. And again, she can help you out for a fee, right? She has free resources, Tiffany Allen here. And she also has, this is how she makes her living, right? As kind of this large consultancy. So this is not an endorsement of her services, but I do think that her free resources are amazing. And always, certainly my conclusion after sitting through all of these things is, wow, we need a dedicated staff person who's a grant writer, right? So there's a reason why a lot of this work gets farmed out to a consultant or to a person. Often the most cost-efficient way to get some grants written is to hire somebody outside your organization for a little while, because I know on the scale of work that most of us are doing, you don't have a whole dedicated, you are the grant writer. You're the grant writer and the CEO, and you're delivering when do you have time to do all this stuff? So looking for a consultant is definitely a place to start as far as getting the first few grants written and out the door. You retain all the intellectual property, you retain the grants that are written, and you can reuse a lot of that text over and over again. Okay, all right, let's look at what, I think it's Amber. Let's look at what our next person has to say. Thanks.
Grants are one of many possible ways that nonprofits can fundraise, but finding them can often be a challenge. In this video, I'm going to share 9 places where you can start the search for grants for your nonprofit organization. Welcome back. My name is Amber Melanie Smith, and I'm a nonprofit founder and executive director who makes these videos here on YouTube all about nonprofits, social enterprise, social impact projects, and more. I hope that you find this useful. Don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Speaking of grants and other fundraising possibilities, if you're in the process of generating your sustainable fundraising plan or starting a nonprofit, be sure to check out my website, foundertofulltime.com, where I have 2 online trainings that can help out with those topics. All right, let's get right into these resources. Before I begin, just a quick disclaimer that many of the grant databases or grant searching sites often come with a paid membership subscription or fee. So I'm going to be focusing today on some of the free resources, whether that's free versions of some of those paid resources out there or just places that don't cost anything at all. And I hope that you find something helpful here in the mix of all these. Number 1 is grantstation.com. Now, this is a place where you can search for grants in the United States or in various countries around the world. You can search by geographical area or cause area. This is one of those sites that does have a paid level, but there's lots that you can look at for free on the website too. This is one that I've personally used for my own organization at times, so I know it's pretty good value. It doesn't cost a lot of money for the paid subscription if you do plan to do that. And I am in no way affiliated with GrantStation. Number 2 is Foundation Directory Online. And similar to GrantStation, this does have a paid subscription model, but there is a way that nonprofits can get access to this database for free, and that is through their local library or nonprofit center. So just go check out your local library, ask if they have the membership to the foundation directory online, and you can do your searching there to get access to all that lovely information about available grants that might be able to help your nonprofit in your community. The third place you can search for grants is grants.gov. This is once again specifically grants that are in the United States, and these are large federal grants. So we're talking often multi-million-dollar grants. A couple of words of wisdom about government grants and grants that you'll find on grants.gov. These are going to be really big, usually robust, probably pretty complex applications. It's not always for beginners who don't have experience with this, and oftentimes these grants will require that you have some evidence that your programs work or some history of past experience before you can qualify for such a grant. But I do think it's worthwhile looking around and starting to orient yourself around these applications and what they contain, because they can be really helpful teaching tools as well as you're learning the grant writing practice. The fourth resource I'm going to share is the Community Foundation Locator. And this isn't exactly a website where you search for grants, but it is a website where you search for community foundations that offer grants. If you're not familiar, a community foundation is a foundation that gives out money to the nonprofits within its specific geographical service area. So you might have a community foundation of a particular region or city or county, and it's focusing on usually numerous issues or a select handful of issues within that geographical scope. The money comes from usually donors, donor-advised funds, and sometimes grants that the foundation itself makes from its own interest generated from endowments and so forth. So these are great resources for you to check out. I also recommend having a conversation with the program and grant officers at your local community foundations, because they are in the work to help support nonprofits in raising money and are usually pretty friendly and good about answering questions that you might have about the grant writing process. So you can go to this website I'm going to link in the description below, is from the Council on Foundations. It contains a map of where you can find community foundations all around. So check out that map and figure out which ones might be close to you if you aren't already familiar with your local community foundation. Number 5 is global giving. And this one is also a little bit of a unique case because they don't specifically have a list or a database of grant makers on there, but what you do is you create a profile for your nonprofit and you can launch fundraisers. And what they provide as value according to their website is they are a place where corporate foundations or grant making foundations, they're going to global giving to vet projects and organizations and find organizations and projects that they might not have heard of before. So it's a possibly good place to get discovered and get matched to and connect to these foundations that you might not have otherwise been exposed to. Number 6 is Grant Gopher, like the little animal gopher. And it is a pretty decent website where you can search for generally up-to-date grants right there for free. You can search by geographical area. There's lots of different opportunities up there. They do also have a paid level, but there's quite a bit of information that you can find on there at the free level too. So another great resource where you might be able to find some grant opportunities. The 7th resource is grantmakers.io. Now this is a very robust database, but I do, in my opinion, believe that it requires a little bit more of a learning curve because it's not going to necessarily show you upcoming applications and their deadlines, stuff like that. It's instead going to show you foundations and where they have made their grants. Now, this can be very useful information because if a particular grant is funding organizations with a similar mission to yours, you might surmise that that grant maker might be interested in your cause as well. But it does take a little bit more of deeper investigation in order to get to that information. Number 8 is Let's Roam's charity grants list. This is not a database, but it is a web page that links to a bunch of corporate foundation grant-making philanthropic web pages. So you can go through there and get those links to each of the companies' grant-making, if they have it, information, which can save a lot of time. So thank you, Let's Roam. The information I saw that on that page looks just maybe 2 or 3 years old, but a lot of it was still really helpful and valid and can cut down on a lot of time researching corporate grants. Number 9, the final one I'm going to share with you today, is a little bit of a bonus item because it focuses specifically on animal rescue operations and funding. So this is called the Animal
All right, Ms.
Funding
Nina,
Atlas.
I think we're,
And what it is
I
it's a
don't
map
know how many
showing-
of you fund animal rescue, but if you do, there's more resource to be found here. Next slide, please. So again, I know that was a lot. I was just thinking as we were watching that, I was just thinking, I wonder how many of you know about looking at the 990s for not only foundations, but other organizations that do work like yours. So I think maybe if we have a little time at the end, I'll show you how to look for a 990. That's the tax form that you have to file, the tax form that every nonprofit has to file. And there's a ton of great information you can get by looking at someone's 990. And it's publicly available information. All right, so to recap a little bit of what we just heard, the grant database landscape. You can get free access to most grant databases. It's going to be limited. So this idea of you can go to the LA Public Library. They have a subscription to the foundation directory. And I just want you to look down here. It's the first one I have listed, Candid Foundation Directory here. It's $1,600 a year to what's that called? To have the foundation to have the foundation directory. But the LA, our central branch of the LA Library, they subscribe. That's the word I was looking for. They already subscribe, so you can go use it at the LA Library for free. So you can carve out a day, go do some grant research at the foundation directory. Again, it's the mother of all grant directories. It has everything. You can pay $220 for a month and have it for a month. Several of these offer a 1-month subscription rate. So you subscribe for a month, you do all the research you need to do, you unsubscribe, and then you have this whole list of prospects, this whole list of people who you can apply for. So that's Candid. Grant Station, which we heard about, the cheapest that you can get Grant Station for. And just as the grant writer said earlier, I too, Grant Station, toward the end of my grant writing career, Grant Station was the database that I relied on. Again, I'm not affiliated with them. It's not, it's not like a full-on recommendation that you must get it. It's a resource, and you could get it for 3 months for $219. Grant, and again, so as you go down the list here, you can see these the prices. I want to let you know that a couple of these also offer grant writing resources. So you can hire somebody through the site, and I think Grant Watch is one. You can hire a grant writer through that site to apply for any of the grants you check off. There's a fee involved, of course. But again, once those grants are written, once you've got a little library of 4 or 5 grants, you can lean on those to complete applications for other funders. And Grant Gopher I'd never heard of, but there is a free membership level. It is the cheapest of all of these at $9 a month. What a grant database gives you is what the funder wants to fund, when the deadline is for their grants, who the people are who are. So again, I just want to point back to this thing that several of our talking heads have said, and that I said at the beginning. Getting grants is about building relationships. It is not sitting behind your computer and just filling out forms. It is making a phone call. It is getting to know the people who are in the nonprofit world in LA. I was sort of entertained. So our community foundation is the California Community Foundation, and it's huge, right? The California Community Foundation is huge. They do have resources. They are helpful, but they are, it's not the same as living in even Cleveland. I was just trying to think of it. In Buckeye, Arizona. It's not the same as living in Buckeye, Arizona, and there being a community foundation that's just for Buckeye. And you call them up and they have all day to talk to you about Buckeye and what you do for Buckeye. California Community Foundation is huge. Again, there are lots of free resources. It's worth getting to know, like look through the website, look at the programs they have available, applying. If you fit within those program descriptions, applying for one is a good way to get on their radar. But our California Community Foundation is huge. Next slide, please. No, that's all right. And again, I know this is a lot, but all these resources will be available to you to look at your leisure. So please don't panic if it's all going by too fast.
Yes, don't panic. I can panic for losing.
Don't panic, Mina, don't panic.
Should play the song, Don't Panic. Okay, so view and slideshow. Okay. You were still on this slide, correct?
I do not see
Oh.
you might be on a different, yeah.
Oh dear. Okay, there you go.
Okay, very good. Okay, so again, here are the grant databases, and I had to refamiliarize myself with them, but I feel pretty confident about this list. Next slide. Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to share. I want to show you, this just happened. Well, maybe it happened 2 years ago. Maybe because of COVID, I don't have a good, I can't remember anymore exactly when things happened. I just remember when this became available, I got so excited because let's just go to it.
Hey, come on, girl.
Okay. Oops. Oh, I'm sorry, everybody. I'm not a Bing user, not a fan. I'm going to use this.
Are you going to share on your screen, Rebecca?
Oh, have I? So can people see my screen?
I have no idea, but I'll stop sharing so that you can
Okay,
share.
sorry. It says I'm screen sharing. So we have this link to this thing called the California Grants Portal. Let us know if you don't see a new way to find grants on your screen, please let us know. So the California State Library has this tool at grants.ca.gov. I believe these are government grants. Profits will have better access to funding. There might be private funders on here too, but when this became available, I was suddenly like, oh, thank goodness. Like suddenly I didn't feel so alone in doing, like trying to find, where do I see this list of grantors? 2020. So 2020 is when this happened, but we have this link for you. This is a great place to start. And again, like, show me the opportunities. What happens? So, wow. Okay. Forecasted and so you can check a box saying you're looking for grants that are coming or grants that are active right now. You can look for loans, and they list. So again, these are all California state grants, but this is a great resource, highly recommended for all of you. I'll just throw this in here now. I've had this up for a while, waiting for this webinar. There's a Reddit nonprofit. I'm a fan of Reddit. Even stuff that I know is fake news, or it's just good to see like, what are people talking about online. So here in this our nonprofit, someone had a question about how do I find grants. And it was a pretty specific question. But here again, I saw, and this is 2 years ago. This discussion was 2 years ago. But do you have a local community foundation? Again, our local community foundation is huge. What else did I see here? Oh, so people saying, so I've got to say, I'm a real detractor I'm not a fan of grants. As a previous grant writer and a grant administrator, I do think that there can be easier and better ways of finding money than grants. And this person says, people always think of grants first, but finding an individual donor might be easier. And again, this is about all of it's relationship building. All of it is getting to know people, letting them know what you do. Another plug for Candidates Foundation directory, which is the mother of all directories. I especially like this because, there are links to, I haven't tested all of these out, but Cisco is still doing links. These are technology grants. So like you can find these links again on the nonprofit Reddit, finding grants. And finally, there's a lot of cynicism here, but this person at the very bottom suggested bake sale for finding money. Do not recommend bake sale. But Ms. Mina, where are we in our slideshow? I did find that very amusing. I was like, sure. Okay, so here's grants.ca.gov. This idea about get on the newsletter, get mini grant data. So I have had, back on a previous slide, you will see a link to GrantWatch. And my whole grant writing career, I have always signed up for the GrantWatch newsletter. And it is literally every grant in every state across the nation, and some international ones, like it's everything. So the problem with GrantWatch is it's everything. So a very small percentage of those things are going to be right for you. But the good part of it is it's everything. It's like everything is there, and it comes, I think they've got a daily subscription, a weekly subscription, and getting that info is free. And again, through GrantWatch, I believe it's GrantWatch where you can hire a grant writer to, you can click boxes saying, I want to apply for this grant, this grant, this grant, and this grant. And then for a fee, you can hire somebody to write them. A note about that, the grant writer is going to need to talk to you a lot to write these grants. So this is not going to be, this isn't going to be a situation where you've checked a box and somebody goes and makes some magic for you, right? You are still the generator of your own magic. You are still the solution that you've been looking for. You are still the help that is on the way. So be prepared to give this grant writer some time to really explain what you're doing. It's the best way to get a good grant. Finally, you've heard grants.gov recommended several times. They also have free, you can sign up to get notifications of when grants are available. The thing that the previous, I think it was Amber, the previous grant writer said about these federal grants are huge. They're extremely competitive. They're very hard to get, but it is so. I remember when I was first starting out as a grant writer, I was like, who decides the national conversation on quote, what are best like who decides what a best practice is? Well, here's my answer. This is an answer I arrived at because no one ever answered that question to my satisfaction. It's the federal government. The federal government is, so if you want to know what grant your county might be offering in the future, go to grants.gov and see what the feds are spending money on. Because that is like, they are the ones who have the think tanks and the evaluators and the scientists and the researchers and all the people trying to figure out how to deliver services that actually work. So grants.gov is a great education. Next slide. Oh, okay. So we do. So this is a lot. I know this is a lot. I know this is a lot. Again, we're going to have Tiffany Allen of Boss on a Budget. She offers a free worksheet of, I think it's got 25 slots in it to write down all the first people who you can apply to or reach out to, and we're going to, that will be available on our TPA Community Resources website. So within a week, soon it will be there. So creating a target list, again, making lists, using your calendar, your Google Calendar, your calendar function, writing the deadlines into that calendar, and then organizing your fundraising toward those deadlines. All of that can be very helpful. Next slide. Okay, and here, next slide, please. So this is from, I gave a how to write a winning proposal webinar, which I'm going to make sure is also available on this resources site. It's where I made a lot of these other resources available the first time. Again, I want to reiterate that writing grants is about project management. It's about time management and project. So relationships first, project management next, right? Like, here's a good plan of attack. You know, do not apply for grants you're not eligible for. Do not apply to people who are not funding the thing that you do. Do not waste your precious time. You want to have a plan of attack. So this is an idea when you're getting started with writing a grant, like do these four things first, and then the rest is easy. If you can do these things first, get your budget down, do all this first, the rest is easy. Next slide. Okay, so again, just a recap of the resources that were available in this slideshow will be available on our website. Next slide, please. And here are all the links to the websites. So again, you know, this slide deck's going to, you can just click these links and go. Next slide. I cannot say enough about this. This is where I learned to be a professional grant writer. The Grantsmanship Center located here in Los Angeles. All these I think are virtual now, but I was trained at a time when I went and sat in a room for a week and it was amazing. You leave with a binder full of everything you learned, so you can always go back and refresh your memory about how to do something. Grantsmanship Center usually costs $1,300, but they do have something called Project Grantsmanship available at this link. They offer it 4 times a year. For $200, you can take their week-long course, and I cannot recommend it enough. Next slide. More online, more links, more clickable links. Next slide. I think it's all resources. Okay, well, we've got a minute. I do have a meeting at 3 o'clock, so I don't know how much, but if you have questions, please, I don't see you can always email TPA grants, TPA third party administrator. Oh, there it is. You can email me here if you have more questions. But again, for all of you who've been asking about where do I get started, here's some great resources for you. Thank you for your time today. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. We appreciate all of the knowledge and wisdom that you just gave everyone here. And everything will be posted on our Amity NU website within a week. So please check it out. We will let your grant advocate know when the videos are up. If you've missed any of our videos, they're all up on our website already. And we can definitely post that website here in the chat. But if not, have a fabulous day, and we will see everyone next week. We'll send out an email with the calendar of webinars for September this week. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.